First contact gone wrong. The Deep Space Monitoring Station Olympus hadn't registered anything interesting in its 15 years of operation. Until today, Dr. Elena Rodriguez stared at her console, double-checking the readings that had just triggered every alarm in the facility. The signal was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. A complex pattern of quantum fluctuations that seemed to defy the laws of physics themselves. "Director Hayes, you need to see this," Elena called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The station's director appeared behind her moments later, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display. "Talk to me, Rodriguez." "The signal." Elena pulled up the visualization. "It's not random noise. Look at these patterns. They're structured, deliberate. And they're coming from the edge of the Carina Nebula, about 7,000 light-years out." Hayes leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "A distress call." "That's my best guess. But here's the strange part. It's being transmitted through quantum channels we didn't even know existed. Whoever sent this, they're centuries ahead of us technologically." The implications hung heavy in the air. Humanity had long suspected they weren't alone in the universe, but proof had remained elusive. Until now. Within hours, the United Earth Space Command's newest vessel, the UES Defiant, was preparing for launch. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, reviewing the mission parameters. At 42, she was one of the youngest captains in the fleet, having earned her position through a combination of tactical brilliance and unwavering courage. "All systems ready, Captain," reported Commander James Martinez, her first officer. "Quantum drive is spooled up and ready for translation." Sarah nodded, her dark eyes fixed on the main viewport. "Send one last message to command. Tell them we're proceeding as planned." She paused, then added, "And Martinez, make sure they know, if we don't make it back, follow the quantum signature. Whatever's out there, humanity needs to know." The Defiance journey took 3 weeks, even with the advanced quantum drive. As they approached the source of the signal, the crew grew increasingly tense. The ship's sensors were picking up debris, massive amounts of it, spreading across an area larger than Earth's solar system. "Analysis complete, Captain," Lieutenant Patel announced from the science station. "The debris, it's from multiple ships, different designs, different materials. Some of it appears to be centuries old." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "A graveyard." The words had barely left her mouth when the ship's proximity alerts screamed to life. A massive vessel had just appeared from nowhere, dwarfing the Defiant. Its surface was covered in what appeared to be organic-looking plates, shifting and realigning like the scales of some cosmic serpent. "Incoming transmission," Martins reported, his fingers dancing across the controls. The bridge's main screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that made several crew members gasp. The being addressing them was towering, its body seemingly composed of crystalline structures that pulsed with internal light. When it spoke, its words were translated by the ship's AI in real time. "Human vessel." The voice resonated with an unnatural harmony. "You have entered territory belonging to the Kryvax Empire. Your presence here is a violation of imperial law. Prepare to be boarded and processed." Sarah stood from her chair, her posture rigid. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command vessel Defiant. We are responding to a distress signal. We mean no harm, but will defend ourselves if necessary." The crystalline being's lights pulsed faster. "Ah, you received our lure. Primitive species are so predictably altruistic. The processing will begin shortly. Resistance is not advised. Your technology is centuries behind ours." That's when Sarah noticed something the Kryvax had missed. Behind their massive ship, barely visible through the debris field, she could see movement. Other ships, hiding, their designs as varied as the debris itself. And they were signaling, not through quantum channels, but through simple light pulses that the Kryvax apparently considered too primitive to monitor. "Help us." The lights blinked in simple binary. "They enslave all they find." Sarah's mind raced. The Kryvax hadn't destroyed those ships. They had collected them, harvested their crews, and added their technology to their own. This wasn't just first contact. This was humanity's first glimpse of a galactic horror they never could have imagined. "Martinez," she whispered, keeping her eyes on the screen, "initiate Protocol Omega." Now, Protocol Omega was a last resort measure, untested outside simulations. It would overload the quantum drive, creating a temporary rupture in spacetime itself. In theory, it would give them a chance to escape. In practice, well, no one knew. "You seem to be preparing some form of resistance," the Kryvax being observed, its tone almost amused. "Please continue. It will make an interesting addition to our behavioral studies." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Oh, we're not resisting. We're just introducing ourselves properly. Humanity has a long history of dealing with bullies, and we've learned one very important lesson." She nodded to Martinez. "And what lesson is that?" the Kryvax asked. "Sometimes the primitive solution is the best one." The Defiance quantum drive detonated, ripping a hole in reality itself. The ship was ready for it. The Kryvax vessel wasn't. As the massive ship tumbled, its systems scrambled by the quantum cascade. Sarah gave the order to run. The Defiance shot through the debris field, its conventional engines at full burn. Behind them, the hidden ships of other species began to move as well, seizing their chance for freedom. "Send a message to Earth," Sarah ordered as they fled. Tell them we're not alone out here, and we've got one hell of a fight ahead of us." As the Defiant raced toward home, carrying news that would forever change humanity's place in the cosmos, Sarah Chen knew this was just the beginning. The Kryvax would come for Earth, that was certain. But they would learn what so many others throughout human history had learned the hard way. Threatening humanity was always a mistake, because humans didn't just fight back. They evolved. They adapted. They overcame. And the Kryvax were about to learn exactly what that meant. The alliance forms. 3 months after the Defiance escaped from the Kryvax, Earth had transformed. The knowledge that humanity wasn't alone in the universe, and that their first cosmic neighbors were hostile, had united the planet in unprecedented ways. Former rivals pooled resources, shared technology, and worked together toward a single goal: survival. Deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Captain Sarah Chen stood before the United Earth Defense Council. The holograms of ships they glimpsed during their escape floated between them, each one representing the different enslaved species. "The light signals we received weren't random," Sarah explained, gesturing to the projections. "They were coordinates, specifically coordinates to hidden resistance outposts throughout Kryvax space. These species have been fighting back for centuries, but separately, ineffectively. They need a catalyst, and that's us." Admiral Torres, her weathered face illuminated by the holograms, leaned forward. "You're suggesting we actively reach out to these resistance groups?" "Captain, we can barely defend Earth. How can we help others?" Sarah smiled. "Because, Admiral, we have something they don't. Something the Kryvax would never expect." She nodded to Dr. Rodriguez, who had been recruited from Olympus Station for this very project. Elena stepped forward, activating a new hologram. "We've been studying the quantum signature from the Kryvax lure. Their technology is advanced, yes, but it's also stagnant. They haven't truly innovated in centuries. They just assimilate others' technologies. But this," she brought up a simulation of their new quantum shield technology. "This is something entirely new. The shield wasn't just a barrier. It was a quantum field that existed in multiple states simultaneously, making it theoretically impenetrable to any single form of attack. It was the kind of breakthrough that came from humanity's greatest advantage: their ability to think outside established paradigms. The Kryvax wouldn't just fail to penetrate these shields," Elena continued, "they wouldn't even understand how they work. Their entire technological philosophy is based on singular, absolute states. Quantum uncertainty on this scale would be, well, alien to them. The council chamber erupted in murmured discussions. Sarah let them talk, her mind drifting to the ships she'd seen hiding in that debris field. Those weren't just vessels. They were survivors, refugees, resistance fighters who had never given up hope. "There's more," Sarah added once the murmurs died down. "During our escape, we managed to download a significant portion of the Kryvax ship's database. It contains the locations of their primary shipyards, their patrol routes, even their communication protocols. With this information and our new shield technology, we could coordinate with the resistance forces." Admiral Torres finished, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Create a unified front." "Exactly," Sarah nodded. "The Kryvax maintain control through isolation, keeping subjugated species separate, preventing them from combining their knowledge and strengths. But now we can change that." The plan came together over the next weeks. The Defiant, now equipped with the experimental quantum shields, would make contact with the nearest resistance outpost. They would share the shield technology, coordinate strategies, and begin building a network of allied forces right under the Kryvax's nose. The mission was designated Operation Dawn's Light, and it would either mark the beginning of humanity's greatest alliance or their final chapter. 2 months later, the Defiant slipped through space like a ghost, its quantum shields making it virtually invisible to Kryvax detection systems. They were approaching the coordinates of the first resistance outpost, hidden in an asteroid field on the edge of what had once been free space. "Contact," Martinez reported from his station. "Free ships, matching designs we saw during our escape. They're hailing us." The main screen lit up, revealing a being that looked almost like a living shadow, its form shifting and flowing like smoke. When it spoke, its words were translated by their improved systems. "Human vessel." The being's voice was melodious despite its otherworldly appearance. "I am Nexus, leader of the Shade Collective. We didn't think you would actually come back." Sarah stepped forward. "We don't abandon those in need. And we bring more than just our presence. We bring hope." Over the next hours, Sarah and her crew shared their plans with Nexus and the other resistance leaders. The quantum shield specifications were transmitted, along with the stolen Kryvax data. But more importantly, they shared something the resistance had lost long ago: the belief that victory was possible. "Your species is young," Nexus observed as they concluded their meeting. "You lack our technology, our experience. Yet you've already accomplished what none of us could. You've found a way to truly hurt the Kryvax. Perhaps youth is exactly what this fight needs." Sarah looked out at the assembled alien ships, each representing species that had suffered under Kryvax rule for generations. "We're young," she agreed, "but that means we haven't learned what's impossible yet. And in our history, the impossible has a funny way of becoming possible when humanity's back is against the wall." As the Defiant prepared to move on to the next resistance outpost, Sarah received a transmission from Earth. The quantum shields were being mass-produced, and the first fleet of new warships would be ready within months. But more importantly, other nations were following their lead, preparing their own fleets, all coordinating under a single banner: the Liberation Coalition. The Kryvax had ruled through fear and isolation for centuries. But they were about to learn a harsh lesson. Nothing united disparate groups quite like a common enemy. And humanity, young and primitive as they might be, had a gift for turning unity into victory. The war hadn't even truly begun, but its course was already changing. Because for the first time in centuries, the enslaved species of the galaxy had something the Kryvax couldn't take away. They had hope. Operation Thunderstrike. The Kryvax shipyard loomed against the backdrop of a dying star, its crystalline structures reflecting the red giant's fading light. 6 months had passed since the formation of the Liberation Coalition, and now everything was in place for their first major offensive. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned UES Thunder, a warship built specifically for this operation. The Defiant had been impressive, but the Thunder was something else entirely. A perfect fusion of human ingenuity and alien technology, enhanced by contributions from each member of the coalition. All ships report ready, Captain, Martins announced from his station. He'd followed Sarah to this new command, along with many of the original Defiant crew. The Shade fleet is in position, and the Velkarans are standing by. Sarah studied the tactical display. 50 ships surrounded the shipyard, hidden behind their quantum shields. Human vessels mixed with those of their alien allies. Each brought unique strengths to the battle. The Shade Collective's mastery of stealth, the Velkarans' devastating energy weapons, and humanity's unpredictable tactics. Send the signal, Sarah ordered. Begin Operation Thunderstrike. The first phase of the attack didn't involve a single shot fired. Instead, hundreds of small drones, developed by Earth's best engineers, swarmed toward the shipyard. The Kryvax, with their rigid thinking, had excellent defenses against large-scale attacks. But these drones were smaller than most debris, and their quantum shields made them nearly impossible to detect. Drones in position, Elena reported from her science station. After the success of the Quantum Shield project, she'd requested a transfer to active duty, beginning electromagnetic pulse sequence. The drones activated simultaneously, releasing precisely calibrated energy pulses that interfered with the Kryvax's crystalline technology. The shipyard's outer defenses flickered and failed, creating a momentary window of vulnerability. All ships, execute attack pattern Sierra, Sarah commanded. Remember, unpredictability is our advantage. Don't fall into standard formations. The Coalition fleet dropped their quantum shields and struck. But instead of the traditional naval-style combat the Kryvax expected, each ship moved independently, following random vectors that made their attacks impossible to predict. It was a tactic inspired by Earth's aerial dogfights, adapted for three-dimensional space warfare. The Kryvax response was immediate but confused. Their ships emerged from the shipyard in perfect geometric formations, expecting to face a similarly organized enemy. Instead, they found chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. They're trying to analyze our attack patterns, Elena reported, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. But there are no patterns to analyze. The battle raged across space, a dance of light and energy as ships weaved between each other. The Shade vessels struck from impossible angles, their advanced stealth systems complementing the quantum shields. Velkaran energy weapons pierced Kryvax hulls with surgical precision. And the human ships did what humanity did best. They improvised. Sarah watched as a Kryvax dreadnought targeted one of her squadrons. The human ships scattered, seemingly in panic. But it was a calculated move. They were drawing the dreadnought's fire while a team of Shade infiltrators boarded through its blind spots. Shipyard defenses are at 30%. Martins reported, but they're adapting to the drone interference. Sarah nodded. They'd expected this. The Kryvax might be rigid in their thinking, but they weren't stupid. Launch Phase 2. Let's show them another human tradition. The good old-fashioned Trojan horse. What appeared to be debris from destroyed ships began drifting toward the shipyard. The Kryvax, focused on the main battle, paid little attention to this tactical debris. That was their second mistake. Their first had been assuming they understood human warfare. Boarding teams in position, Martins announced. Ready on your mark. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Tell them to give the Kryvax a lesson in human history. The debris suddenly came alive. Specially designed boarding craft disguised as destruction. They attached to the shipyard's hull, and coalition troops poured inside. While the Kryvax fought the battle outside, human, Shade, and Velkaran warriors began the real mission, taking the shipyard from within. Ma'am, Elena's voice was urgent. Long-range sensors detect Kryvax reinforcements. Heavy force, at least twice our number. Right on schedule, Sarah replied. This too had been expected. The Kryvax were predictable in their responses. It was both their greatest strength and their fatal weakness. Signal the Velkarans. Time for Phase 3. From the outer edges of the system, new ships appeared. The Velkaran's entire rebel fleet, held in reserve for exactly this moment. They struck the arriving Kryvax reinforcements from behind, catching them in a perfect crossfire. Boarding teams report success, Martins announced. They've reached the central control hub, beginning data extraction and demolition procedures. The battle had lasted less than 3 hours. When it was over, the largest Kryvax shipyard in this sector was under coalition control. More importantly, they'd captured invaluable intelligence about Kryvax fleet movements and technology. But the real victory wasn't in the physical damage dealt. It was in the message sent. The Kryvax were not invincible. Their centuries of dominance had made them predictable, inflexible. And now, they faced an enemy that was anything but. As coalition ships secured the sector, Sarah received transmissions from resistance cells across Kryvax space. The news of the victory was spreading, inspiring others to join the fight. The Liberation Coalition was growing stronger by the day. "Send word to Earth," Sarah ordered. Operation Thunderstrike was a success, but tell them to prepare. The Kryvax won't take this lying down. They'll adapt, change tactics. We need to stay one step ahead. She looked out at the captured shipyard, now bearing the marks of battle. This was just the beginning. The Kryvax had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for centuries. Now they would learn about another human tradition, fighting against impossible odds and winning. Because that's what humans did. They didn't just fight. They evolved, adapted, and overcame. And with their alien allies by their side, they were about to rewrite the rules of galactic warfare. The real war was just beginning. The enemy within. Victory had a price. 3 months after Operation Thunderstrike, as humanity celebrated their first major win against the Kryvax Empire, the enemy struck back in ways no one had anticipated. Sarah Chen sat in a secure briefing room deep beneath Geneva, Earth's new military command center. The holographic displays showed what remained of the Luna Defense Station, now a field of debris orbiting humanity's moon. The attack had come from within, devastating Earth's primary orbital defense platform. The sabotage was precise. Admiral Torres explained, her face grim. They knew exactly where to strike. All evidence points to Kryvax infiltrators. Impossible, Elena Rodriguez interjected. Our quantum scanners can detect their crystalline biology. We've been scanning everyone entering sensitive facilities. Then they found a way around it, Sarah stated, studying the destruction patterns. The Kryvax are learning, adapting. We forced them to evolve. The implications were staggering. The Kryvax, known for their rigid adherence to established patterns, were changing their fundamental strategies. Humanity's greatest advantage, their unpredictability, had forced the enemy to become unpredictable themselves. There's more, Torres continued, activating a new hologram. We've detected quantum fluctuations in major population centers worldwide. They're subtle, almost undetectable, but they match Kryvax communication frequencies. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. They're not just infiltrating our military installations. They're embedding themselves in our civilian population. Project Phoenix, a new voice spoke from the doorway. Commander James Martinez entered, carrying a heavily encrypted datapad. That's why I was late. The Shade Collective just sent us critical intelligence. Project Phoenix had been a closely guarded secret, even within the Liberation Coalition. It was humanity's contingency plan, developed in parallel with their military operations. But now, they might need it sooner than anyone had expected. The Kryvax aren't just sending infiltrators, Martinez explained, sharing the Shade intelligence. They're preparing for a full-scale invasion of Earth. The infiltrators are placing quantum beacons, coordinates for their main fleet to target. Elena studied the data, her eyes widening. These beacon patterns, they're not random. They're creating a geometric grid across our planet. When their fleet arrives, they'll be able to establish a perfect containment field. How long do we have? Torres demanded. Based on the Shade's intelligence, 2 weeks at most, Martins replied. Sarah stood, her mind racing through possibilities. Then we have 2 weeks to spring our trap, because that's what this is going to be. Not their trap for us, but ours for them. Over the next days, a desperate plan took shape. While coalition forces worked to track down the infiltrators, humanity's best scientists and engineers worked around the clock to modify Project Phoenix for immediate deployment. The project had originally been designed as a last resort, a way to fundamentally alter the quantum structure of space itself, making it hostile to Krivak's biology. But its scope had been limited, meant for strategic points rather than planetary defense. "We can use their own beacons against them," Elena explained during a planning session. "When their fleet arrives, they'll establish their containment field using the quantum grid their infiltrators created. But we can hijack that grid, turn it into a delivery system for Project Phoenix." The entire Krivak's invasion fleet, Sarah mused, trapped in a bubble of space that's literally toxic to their existence. But first, they had to find and neutralize the infiltrators. The Shade Collective provided crucial help, their natural ability to detect quantum disturbances making them perfect infiltrator hunters. Teams of human and Shade operatives swept through cities worldwide, engaging in silent, desperate battles with the discovered Krivak's agents. Through it all, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. The Krivak's were being too obvious, too detectable. For beings that had mastered the art of conquest over centuries, their infiltration seemed almost amateurish. The answer came 3 days before the expected invasion, from an unexpected source. A young analyst in Buenos Aires noticed a pattern in global communications, a subtle irregularity that had nothing to do with the quantum beacons. "They're not just placing beacons," Sarah realized, studying the analysis. "They're infecting our quantum communication network. When their fleet arrives, they won't just trap us in a containment field. They'll blind us, cut off all coordinated defense." It was elegant, devastating, and exactly the kind of multi-layered strategy the Krivak's were known for. The obvious infiltrators and beacons were just the first layer, meant to occupy humanity's attention while the real trap was laid. But now they knew. And knowledge, combined with humanity's talent for turning enemies' strengths against them, was power. "Update Project Phoenix," Sarah ordered. "When they activate their containment field, we don't just hijack it. We use it to purge our entire quantum network. Clean sweep, total reset. That will cripple our global communications," Torres warned. "We'll be fighting blind." Sarah smiled grimly. "No, Admiral. We'll be fighting like humans fought for most of their history, with chaos, adaptability, and the absolute refusal to play by anyone else's rules." As the countdown to invasion entered its final hours, humanity prepared for their greatest gambit. The Krivak's were coming with their perfect formations, their crystalline technology, and their centuries of conquest experience. They were about to learn that perfection was often the enemy of victory, and humanity, with all its glorious imperfections, had turned surviving against impossible odds into an art form. The final battle for Earth was about to begin. And this time, the enemy within would become the key to humanity's greatest triumph. Freedom's dawn. The Krivak's invasion fleet emerged from quantum space exactly where humanity expected, directly above the beacon grid their infiltrators had established. 10,000 ships, their crystalline hulls reflecting Earth's sunlight, arranged in perfect geometric patterns that had terrorized countless civilizations before. But Earth wasn't like those other worlds, and humanity wasn't like those other species. "They're establishing the containment field," Elena reported from her station in the underground command center. Above them, the sky was turning an unnatural purple as Krivak's quantum technology warped the very fabric of space around Earth. Sarah Chen stood at the main tactical display, watching as the enemy fleet deployed exactly as their intelligence had predicted. The Krivak's, for all their power, were still bound by their own patterns. Status of Project Phoenix. "Ready," Elena confirmed. "The modified quantum network is in place. When they complete their containment field, we can trigger the cascade." The Kryvax transmission cut through all frequencies, broadcasting their expected demands for surrender. The being addressing them was different from the one they'd first encountered months ago, but the arrogance was the same. Humanity. The crystalline entity announced, "Your resistance ends today. You have impressed us with your adaptability, but now you will join the Empire as all others have. Surrender and your species will be preserved." Sarah nodded to Elena. "Send our response." The humans had prepared a very special message, a simple binary code transmitted on the most primitive radio frequencies. To the Kryvax, it would appear to be a desperate last communication from a primitive species. It was actually the trigger sequence for Project Phoenix. The effect was instant and devastating. The Kryvax containment field, designed to trap Earth, instead became the delivery system for humanity's greatest scientific achievement. The quantum cascade spread through their fleet like a virus, transforming the very space they occupied into an environment hostile to their crystalline biology. Ships began to break apart, their perfectly arranged formations dissolving into chaos. But the Kryvax weren't finished. Even as their fleet crumbled, they activated their quantum network infiltration, expecting to blind Earth's defenses. Instead, they found themselves caught in humanity's second trap. The infected network didn't just shut down. It reversed, sending a massive feedback pulse through every quantum system in range. Kryvax communications collapsed, their coordinated strategy falling apart in seconds. "All coalition forces, execute Operation Sunrise," Sarah commanded. From hidden positions around the solar system, the combined fleet of the Liberation Coalition emerged. Human ships flew alongside shade vessels and Velkaran cruisers, each race contributing their unique strengths to the assault. They struck the disoriented Kryvax fleet from all directions, using the unpredictable tactics that had proven so effective. But the real decisive blow came from Earth itself. While the Kryvax had focused on space-based threats, humanity had prepared a surprise. Ground-based quantum pulse cannons, developed in secret using technology from all coalition species, opened fire. The beams pierced the transformed space, created by Project Phoenix, their effect magnified exponentially. Kryvax fleet is in full retreat, Martins reported, unable to keep the satisfaction from his voice. Their remaining ships are attempting emergency quantum jumps. Sarah watched as the mighty invasion force fled, leaving behind a debris field that would serve as a monument to their defeat. But she knew this wasn't just a victory for Earth. It was a victory for every species the Kryvax had ever oppressed. "Send word to all coalition forces," she ordered. "The liberation of Kryvax space begins now." Over the next months, the war that had begun with a single human ship's Defiance transformed into a galaxy-wide revolution. The Kryvax Empire, weakened by their defeat at Earth and the loss of their technological advantages, faced rebellions on every front. One by one, enslaved worlds threw off their chains. The coalition fleet, led by human ingenuity and powered by the combined knowledge of dozens of species, systematically dismantled the Empire's power structure. The Kryvax, for the first time in their long history, learned what it meant to be on the losing side of history. The final battle took place in orbit around the Kryvax homeworld. The coalition fleet, now thousands strong, faced the last desperate defense of a dying empire. But this time, there would be no mercy, no offers of surrender. As the liberation forces achieved victory, Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the sunrise over the crystalline surface of the Kryvax homeworld. Beside her, representatives from every coalition species prepared to establish a new galactic order, one built on cooperation rather than conquest. "What happens now?" Elena asked, standing at her friend's side. Sarah smiled. "Now we do what humanity has always done best. We build something new, something better." The Galactic Confederation was born that day, founded on principles of mutual respect and shared progress. The Kryvax would be contained, their empire dismantled, their technology shared among all species. But they wouldn't be destroyed. Humanity had insisted on that. They would remain as a reminder that oppression could be overcome, that unity was stronger than dominance. And Earth. Earth became a symbol, not just of resistance, but of hope. The young species that had dared to stand against an empire had shown the galaxy a fundamental truth. No power was absolute, no victory was impossible, and the strongest force in the universe wasn't technology or military might. It was the willingness to fight for freedom, to adapt against all odds, and to believe that a better future was always possible. As the sun rose on a new era of galactic civilization, humanity had proven what they had always known in their hearts. The impossible was just another challenge waiting to be overcome. And they were very, very good at overcoming challenges.